So hello, Alan. Nice of you to take the time here during the summer to speak with us.
Thanks for having me back, Mikkel. Nice to be back.
We have a few questions from me and from some of the other investors from the Facebook group as well. But could you start by maybe telling us a little bit about the progress you've been doing with the PFS?
Yep. Yeah, look, it's going very well. We will be issuing an update in the next couple of weeks or so in terms of progress with the pre-feasibility study. Mikkel, as you know, we have Asenco, which is one of the world's largest engineering firms. They have a big office in Brazil, so they're managing this whole pre-feasibility process for us. It's going well. There are obviously lots of different pieces to the pre-feasibility study. You've seen that we've announced that we're doing some more metallurgical studies. We just want to get more detail on the various different ore types of this oxide material. That, as I said, the initial results were very good. 82% gold recoveries from the column leach tests. And I hope that the additional results will continue to have those kind of recoveries, or perhaps better. We'll have to wait and see. It'll be a few weeks before we'll know. We also have some metallurgical results pending on the hard rock material as well. We've been doing different metallurgical studies on the hard rock material. Again, we've got some previous met work done on the hard rock material. As you know, most of the gold is in the unweathered, hard, or fresh, or unoxidized, whatever you want to call it, material. And that actually recoveries in that material are much higher. They're in the order of 94 to 96% gold recoveries. And we're doing more work on that as well. So I think in the next few weeks we'll have some results both on the oxide material, which we're planning on, which is the subject of the current pre-feasibility study, and the underlying hard rock material. There are different aspects to the pre-feasibility study that's going on. There is additional metallurgical work. We are refining the resource estimate. As you know, we've got about 230,000 ounces of gold in this mud, or this sort of blanket material that sits, which is the weathered caps, if you like, on the hard rock material. So we're refining that. We are redoing that for both the MG and the central deposits, because they both have caps. So we're looking at refining those resource models. We need to do a little bit more drilling, Mikkel, on the to upgrade some of the inferred resources. Most of the material we want to mine is in the indicated category, and there's a small part of it which is inferred, and so we need to upgrade that. So there'll be an announcement regarding some drilling in the next few weeks as well. And then beyond that, as I've said to you before, we think there's quite a lot more of this oxide material that is not currently in the resource space, and we haven't made a decision about how aggressive we become with the adding ounces to the oxide resource. I'm very optimistic we'll be able to do that. And the reason I'm so optimistic is because we've done quite a lot of trenching and drilling in other areas, notably that whole Mashishi area, which you heard a lot about last year and the year before, where we've got a lot of oxide material, but there's nothing in terms of including the resource base yet, because we haven't got sufficient drilling there. But that is an area where we think we'll be able to add quite a lot of ounces of this oxide material, as well as hard rock, by the way. There are other things going on. We're about to kick off a detailed LiDAR survey, which is a very detailed topographic survey that we need for all the mine planning, and detailed engineering studies, and all the rest of it. So obviously the news flow has been significantly less in the last few months than it has been previously, over the previous 12 months. That is going to start to increase. I think you mentioned the Cisco deal. You'll start to see there'll be quite a lot of information coming out on regarding the detailed progress of the pre-feasibility study. But look, it's going very well. We are anticipating having it completed, if all goes well, by the end of the year. And the next step then for us is to make a construction decision based on the results of the pre-feasibility study. At this stage, we're not anticipating going to a full feasibility study. And the reason for that is, one is time, because the full feasibility study would obviously take a lot longer. One is cost. We don't want to be spending another couple of $1 million on a full feasibility study if we think we have all the answers regarding the pre-feasibility work. And the other thing is just the sheer magnitude of the project. This trial mining that we're going to be doing is a relatively modest initial first step to mine and recover gold from this oxide material. This isn't what we're not going to be doing is a pre-feasibility study on a $300-500 million project. It'll be a lot more modest than that. So yeah, it's going very well, and I think our shareholders and investors should expect a pretty constant flow of news here going forward. So yeah, things are going well.
Perfect. And you mentioned the royalty deal you announced last week with Osisko. Can you try to walk us through the process you've been in with Osisko and the terms of the deal and how you perceive it?
Yeah, look, we've been talking to Cisco for quite some time. In fact, our discussions and negotiations started last year, so this has taken a little bit of time for us to finalize the agreement. But as you mentioned, last week we announced a royalty deal with Cisco whereby they are acquiring a 1% net smelter return on the entire project of Cuiú for $5 million. So that's about 6.6 million Canadian. That obviously doesn't involve any dilution to the share structure, but it does mean that we've got this commitment to provide them with 1% of the value of the gold that we produce. We think it was a pretty good deal in this market, Mikhail. Obviously, as you know, prices for companies in this sector are still quite depressed, which is somewhat surprising to me given how the gold price is performing. And as you notice, gold price is going back up. As we all know here, at some point, the interest will start coming back into the junior sector. And with that, when that interest does come back, there'll be significant increases in share prices. We hope last time, as you know, our share price increased from about 8 cents, and this is 3 years ago, from about 8 cents to about 84 cents in just a few months. And I'm optimistic that when the market does turn, we'll be extremely well placed. But essentially, as I said, we've sold a 1% royalty for 6.6 million Canadian dollars to Osisko. We're very excited about having Osisko Royalties as partner because they are a very, very well regarded group management team. They've had enormous success in Canada previously. I think we think it's a real vote of confidence in terms of what we've done. They've done extensive due diligence on us, they were quite rigorous in their due diligence, I'd have to say. They didn't leave any stone unturned, as you might expect from a group of that kind of stature. And so we're very pleased to have it done. And in terms of how it compares value-wise, if we were going to raise $6.6 million in the current market, it would equate to around about a third, perhaps a little bit more, dilution to our capital structure, which we didn't think was acceptable. And to raise $6.6 million in the current market for us would have been extremely difficult through an equity deal. Some folks have compared our transaction to a previous transaction that Osisko have done, and obviously they've royalties everywhere, but they have a 0.75% royalty in the TZ project, which is immediately next door. As you know, that's going to be a big mine. It's under construction. Dennis Moore and I were the co-discoverers of that project a long time ago, 20 years ago. Osisko bought that 0.75 royalty essentially for $4.5 million. Actually, the deal was a bit bigger than that. It was a $10 million deal, but it was a buyback on 2%. So they ended up with 0.75%, which is a bit less than what we've done, and they paid $4.5 million for that. Now, bear in mind that TZ, when they bought that, as I said, it's under construction. Their project was much more advanced than we are now. So when they bought that royalty in 2021, the resource was a lot bigger than we have now. So TZ's resource was 2 million ounces, and they had a full feasibility study on the project. So, for us to agree a deal in this market for $5 million US for, what have we got? 1.2 million ounces currently. There's a huge amount of upside, as we all know, in the project. But we're very pleased with the deal. I think it compares very favourably in terms of what they did a couple of years ago for TZ. So very happy to have these guys as partners, obviously it gives us quite a lot of breathing space in terms of getting the pre-feasibility study completed, and also it gives us quite a lot of breathing space, for want of a better word, in terms of the whole project financing process, which is my next priority here. Is in parallel with the pre-feasibility study, we are looking at project financing options for funding this trial mining operation. We've got the licenses in place to do it, both the environmental and mining licenses to do it. As I said, the priorities here are to get this pre-feasibility study done, but in parallel with that, we are now looking at the different project financing options for this. So
And
we're very pleased.
how does the deal with Osisko impact those financing discussions?
Well, there are obviously certain constraints that come with that. When you do a royalty deal, there are certain secured pledges that need to be put in place in the case of a default or something like that. So it will constrain us a little bit. We have to give on any future streams or royalties that we might be contemplating. I'm not saying we are, but if we were to sort of think about a stream or something else like a stream or a royalty as part of the project financing package here, we'd have to give Osisko a first right of refusal. And so there are some constraints, but they're not, how can I put it? They're not too onerous that will sort of preclude us from different options. Now, in terms of the project financing process for this, there's all sorts of different ways of funding this trial mining. One is through future royalties and streams, which aren't my preferred way of doing it. Gold loan would be another one, where you sell your gold in advance, essentially. You take the money now and then you commit to provide gold going forward. It's another form of financing. A joint venture is something that we're going to be looking at. Perhaps selling a minority interest and that minority partner funding the thing. Equity is always a possibility, but at these kind of share prices, that's again not the preferred route. And then there's debt, which is taking a straight loan. So we have a whole bunch of discussions going on with various groups right now, I expect over the next few months that we'll make quite a lot of progress on that. Where we'd like to be, Mikhail, is pretty soon after we've got the results of the pre-feasibility study, which hopefully will be positive. There's no guarantees, but we wouldn't be doing this unless we were quite optimistic. But hopefully pretty soon after, and I'm not talking 6 months, 9 months, but very soon after the pre-feasibility study, we'll have some news on project financing. So that is also another key objective over the next few months.
All right. Does Osisko are there any deadlines you need to meet, or any protective provisions or anything included in the deal? Other than
no, there's no deadlines. We've given the same sort of outline in terms of timing that we've given to all our shareholders, and we've announced publicly. We're planning on getting the pre-feasibility study done towards the end of the year. It may take a little bit longer, but that's currently the time frame we're working on. But no, beyond the constraints I've just mentioned, we don't have to, for Osisko's benefit, we don't have to have the pre-feasibility study done by a certain date. Obviously, it's in everybody's interest, particularly ours and as a company, and for those of our shareholders, to get that study done as fast as we can. But we're not going to cut any corners, because we're going to the plan is to use this study as a basis for a construction decision. As I said, we don't anticipate doing a full feasibility study, but it will be what we anticipate a very good quality pre-feasibility study, and we will have done a lot of detailed engineering on this. So So we right now, as a management team, are looking at the all the various potential questions and that could be asked of the project by a group that might be willing to fund this. And through the discussions that we're currently having with various groups, there are different questions that are coming up. So we want to be able to address all these things ahead of time, rather than get the pre-feasibility study done and then start a multi-month process of project financing. The two are going hand in hand. And so the feedback we're getting from different groups in terms of who might be interested in funding this is very, very useful, and will feed into our pre-feasibility study.
All right. Could you maybe speak a little bit about the value proposition of this deal from Osisko's point of view? I mean, you're gonna have to produce gold for a value of 500 million in order for them to make their money back. So, and I'm sure they're gonna wanna make a lot more money than just what they gave you. So I mean,
well, I think
the due diligence they've made, they must see some potential here.
Yeah. Look, I can't speak for the Cisco guys. You'd have to sort of set up an interview with the Cisco guys and ask them exactly why they invested. But obviously it makes sense from them because they've got, as I said, a 0.75% NSR in a much bigger project next door to us. I can say that my impression is that they were and they are very excited about the upside to Cuiú, and we've talked about this many times before. And just to recap, for those of you that are not aware of this, there was a big gold rush in the Tapajos during the 1980s. All these areas, including our area and the adjacent TZ area, produced quite a lot of placer gold that was mined through simple sluicing of the gravel by informal miners. Our area actually produced 10 times the amount of gold from the gravel that TZ did. So one of my points, since we started chatting with Mikel and since we established this group, or rather Mikel established this Facebook group, is that there was an order of magnitude more gold come out of the streams at Cuiú than at TZ. So there's a very good chance that the hard rock endowment, the amount of ounces that are sitting underneath those streams, is going to be a lot more at Cuiú than at TZ. Now, we haven't finished exploring by a long way Cuiú. TZ is one sort of hard rock deposit that sits under the stream. We now have 4 deposits, and there's probably a number of additional deposits based on the drilling that we've done. So, and only 2 of the 4 right now have resources on. We think those 2 deposits, there's fantastic potential to expand on the current 1.2 million ounces that we've got in the initial 2 deposits. And if you look at our slide deck on our website, you can see there's all sorts of holes in the 3-dimensional model. And there's holes in the 3-dimensional shape of the mineralized bodies because we don't have sufficient drill spacing. So at some point here in the future, we will tighten up that drill spacing and add quite a lot more ounces. But we also don't have maiden resources on the 2 new discoveries. So there's tremendous upside at Cuiú, and I think that is something that really caught Osisko's attention. As I said, it makes a lot of sense because they're already in the region, but it's a huge endorsement of what we're trying to do. Osisko don't do a lot of deals of this sort of size, and we're thrilled to have them as partners. They bring an enormous amount of technical expertise, and they've been a real pleasure to deal with. So I'm really looking forward to working with them going forward. It's an exciting time for us.
All right. And what now that you have 6.6 million Canadian more in the bank? Do you have an updated plan for how to proceed? Are there some things you're gonna do that you weren't gonna do, or is it just to get the PFS done?
Actually, we have quite a bit more than that, Mikel, because as you know, we closed an equity financing in March, and so we had about just under 2 million, I think, when the deal closed last week. So that actually is quite a lot more than 6.6. We have a few payables, which will take a small chunk out of it, but yeah, look, as I said, the priority here is to push this pre-feasibility study ahead as fast as we can, get all the additional network, get the engineering studies moving, get the drills moving, get the topographic work done, etc., etc. So yeah, that's the plan. Now, in terms of a budget, in terms of what we're spending, we're currently discussing that internally as a management group. So in the next few days, we'll finalise that. But as I said, I expect to put out a sort of an update in terms of where we're at with the pre-feasibility study and what the near-term plans are and what investors should expect over the next few months. And I should get that out in the next couple of weeks or so. You guys, hopefully, most of you guys received my notes on the press release. I'll continue to do that. So if you don't want to really, wade through all the details of the press release, read my one pager, which is 4 or 5 bullet points to say that these are the significant pieces of the or points in the press release, and I'll continue to do that. But news flow is going to pick up. So, as I said, there's a lot going on.
All right. And I got a question. Why wouldn't Cisco just buy like 25 or 30% of the company instead of doing a royalty deal? I know they're a royalty company, but just, yeah.
Yeah. Look. Again, look. I can't speak for Cisco. You'd need to chat with them, but that hasn't historically been their modus operandi, and I don't think that we would. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
That's not something that we would have wanted to do. And if you buy an interest above 20% of a public company in Canada, it triggers all sorts of creeping takeover rules. We're open to somebody coming in and taking a strategic stake, but it has to be at to take a significant stake in the company would have to be a premium to the current share price, and that may or may be something that will occur in the future. But it's not really a Cisco's modus operandi to take equity stakes in companies. Their business is about royalties, which they can just sort of purchase, put in a filing cabinet somewhere, help management teams develop their assets, and then once they're in production, they get a revenue stream from it. So, but again, Mikkel, I really can't speak for the Cisco guys. They're a class act, they're a quality bunch of guys, but you'd need to talk to them.
All right, that makes sense. I also got a question regarding permits. Are there any chance that you're gonna get a full mining permit, a license, instead of the trial mining license?
Good question. Well, look, we already have the trial mining permits in place. They've already been approved. So we have permits in place already to mine, and these are from the mining agency in Brazil, which is called the ANM. So we can mine up to 300,000 tons of ore, an unlimited amount of waste. Now, our waste is actually low-grade material, and we want to focus on mining the higher-grade oxide material first. So the material that's running, 1.8 to 2 gram plus type grade, that's the stuff. So those permits are in place. Obviously, there is this 300,000 ton limit. We think that because we're quite advanced with the larger permitting process, that we'll be able to get the full mining licenses in place that will remove that cap in terms of the tons we can mine. Sometime next year, we should get that. We are working on that. We don't need that larger mining license to get going with the trial mining. So as I said, the planning that we're doing now as part of the PFS is based on that 300,000 ton cap. We also significantly here have the environmental licenses in place, because there are 2 tracks that you pursue with permitting most parts of the world. You've got your mining permits and your environmental permits. And we have the environmental permits in place that will allow us to construct the mine at Cuiú for the trial mining. In fact, we can build a plant much larger than we're currently contemplating for the trial mining. So there's a couple of minor things that we need, but the major things are the environmental license and the mining license. I don't see any issue with the permitting here. We're very well advanced with it. Yeah, so we've done a lot of work in the background, and it's been a while since we sort of gave an update out on permitting. But I think it's good that, you know, somebody's asked us about permitting, because I think we need to remind everybody that we're pretty much fully permitted for the trial mining.
Okay, that's really good to hear. I think actually that was we've covered most of the questions already. So do you have like anything you wanna share? You've talked a little bit about upcoming news flow and what we can expect as shareholders.
Look, I mean, the other thing I would say is, I mean, I think some of you guys may have noticed that we've actually, a couple of the directors have elected to resign. That's not, by the way, connected to, one, the Cisco deal, which is obviously extremely positive for us, and two, you know, some sort of difference of opinion or anything like that. In fact, both Rod and Derek resigned for different reasons, and I'd known about it for some time. So we currently have a process underway to replace both of them. They were excellent directors. We've got a very good relationship with both of them. They're fantastic guys, and I expect I'll be speaking to them from time to time and getting their advice on things. But it does present us with an opportunity to bring some new blood into the board. Obviously, with the company changing from a exploration company to a developer producer, we need some different skill sets on the board, and so I think that's one thing. And another thing that our investors and our shareholders should expect some news about board appointments here in the next few weeks. What else can I tell you? No, there's just a lot going on. I mean, you know, Brazil is it's a very, very interesting place to work. I think, you know, you've seen some of the recent deals. You know, you've seen a constant stream of news from our neighbors, G Mining, which are developing this $500 million project right on our doorstep. As I said, Dennis Moore and I were involved in the discovery of that project, so it's gratifying for us to see that coming online. But let's not forget that Cuiú was the biggest placer camp 40 years ago. It produced more placer gold than anywhere else. So there's a very good chance that it should have the largest hard rock endowment. There's no guarantee, but it should have a very large hard rock endowment. So, you know, we're on a mission to prove this thing up. Now, the challenge, as I've said to you before, Mikhail, is when you have wild fluctuations in market conditions like you see in our sector, we have to raise money if we're doing equity deals all the time based on a share price at the time that we have to do a financing. And we want to get off that hamster wheel. And once we're off that hamster wheel and we've got cash flow from production, it should allow us to get very aggressive with the drilling. A lot more aggressive than we've been previously. Now, at the beginning of last year, we had 5 rigs turning. Now, once we get this oxide material in production, we should be able to increase the amount of the rig count at Cuiú. We've got 45 plus targets, some of them with some exceptional results, right? So as a management team, we're looking at some of these results we've got outside of the 4 known discoveries. And I tell you, it keeps you awake at night. Like you and I have talked about some of the drill intercepts we've got on some of these peripheral targets, some of these boulders that are running, averaging 3 ounces a ton. These things need a lot more drilling, so that once we've got cash flow, obviously we're not going to have to worry about diluting the capital structure going forward, and we'll really be able to actually give this district the attention that it really deserves in terms of drilling attention, is what I'm referring to. And I think there'll be a lot of new discoveries made here in the medium term, in the next, I don't know, anywhere from 18 months through to 5 years type of thing. But the other thing I would mention here, which is kind of related to that, is obviously the priority here for the next few months for us for the rest of this year and moving forward for the early part of next year is A, to get the pre-feasibility study completed, that trial mining operation funded, and for us to get construction underway early next year. But the bigger prize here is the underlying hard rock material at Cuiú Cuiú. This is the stuff that's a mineralized material in the granite, which contains most of the gold that we've got. So, and I think once we can grow that resource, and I'm very optimistic we're going to aggressively grow that here in the short to medium term, but you know, once that resource gets well over 2 million ounces, obviously it'll be a similar size to TZ. I think it'll keep growing. I think it will keep growing in steps and steps and steps as we prove up the current discoveries that we've got and make new discoveries. But that, I think, is going to result in a much larger project in the medium term. So there's the initial step one is to get the oxide material into production, start producing gold, making money from the heap leaching of this material, which would be very cheap to mine. Stage two is a much bigger opportunity, is mining this hard rock material, having multiple open pits, which are all feeding a central processing facility, and proving that a resource up, which is sufficient to justify that much larger stage two, I think is going to be very exciting for us. So I think there's a lot of good reasons here. I mean, the other way of looking at the valuation of this company is we're probably valued in the order of about 25 million Canadian dollars right now as a market cap. We have 1.2 million ounces in the bank, so let's say 25 million is 20 million US. It's actually a bit less, but you know, that's around about, I don't know, somewhere from 15 to 17 US dollars an ounce in the ground. And gold yesterday was trading at $1,978 an ounce. So, but there's always downside, even when you're at the bottom of the market. But the upside here is enormous. As I said, 3 years ago, we were raising money at 10 cents, and the stock was, you know, trading in that kind of range. A few months later, the whole market had turned, and suddenly we're at 70, 80, 85 cents. So I think there's a lot of upside, and I think there's a lot of good reasons to contemplate becoming a shareholder in Cabral, and if you are not a shareholder, considering some sort of investment in Cabral. And so, and I would suggest to you that some of the boxes that you guys should be ticking is management. Do they have a track record? I've talked a little bit about our track record. As you know, I'm the largest shareholder in this company. I put $1.8 million in through equity, and I put $1 million in as a loan into the company. So $2.8 million is a massive amount of my net worth and my wife's. So, you know, that's not common in our industry. My salary is right on the low end if you look at CEO salaries in this sector. We've demonstrated that we continue to raise money. We've got this track record in Brazil. We've got 1.2 million ounces already defined with this fantastic upside. We're right next door to Brazil's largest new gold mine. It's going to be the third largest gold mine in Brazil. It's not going to be a small mine. It's going to be a massive mine. $550 million they raised to build that thing. So I think those are some of the things, some of the reasons that you might want to, A, either hold on to your shares, or B, contemplate picking up a few more. So as always, I'm always open if anybody wants to ask me some follow-up questions. This unfortunately is not live this time, but you guys can all contact me at Alan, A-L-A-N, at cabralgold.com, or you can just fire a note to Michael, and Michael will forward it to me, and I'll respond to you.
All right. Thanks, Alan. I think we, with that comment, we'll call it a day. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us, and have a nice summer holiday if you're having one.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, guys.